Welcome back to another Japanese with Josh lesson. This is lesson number 4, where I'm going to be talking about some hiragana as well as some shopping phrases that you can use when you go to Japan. So the hiragana for this week's lesson is actually not anything new. We're going to be taking old hiragana and adjusting them slightly by adding something called a tenten, which will change the sound of the hiragana itself. So let me give you an example of what tenten marks do to certain hiragana. Tenten marks are marks that you would add to certain hiragana and katakana symbols to change the consonant that they come with. It basically looks like a quotation mark. So it's a quotation mark that is an ending quotation mark, so it's not an opening one going from right to left, but it's an ending one going from left to right. And these all go in the upper right-hand corner of a hiragana. For example, so here we have the hiragana ki. Now what we do is we add these tenten marks on the upper right hand side of this hiragana right here. Now what that does is it changes the consonant that comes with this sound. So that ki is no longer ki if we add those tenten marks, but it turns that K into a G. So it's no longer ki, but gi. Now this is the same for all K hiragana and katakana. So ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, when you add the tenten mark to it, becomes ga, gi, gu, ge, go. Let's take a look at it on the tablet. So like I said, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. But then when we add the tenten marks up in the top right-hand corner of all these hiragana, it becomes ga, gi, gu, ge, go. So there are 4 hiragana and katakana symbols that will change the consonant sound when you add a tenten mark to them. That is the K sounds, the S sounds, the T sounds, and the H sounds. The H sound actually has a second mark that I'm going to talk about when we actually come up with the H sounds. But for now, just keep in mind that K, S, T, and H will all change sound depending on what you see in the top right-hand corner of the hiragana. So let's take a look at the S sounds. Sa, shi, su, se, so. We learned these last lesson. It's pretty simple, right? When we add the tenten mark to sa, shi, su, se, so, it turns that into za, ji, zu, ze, zo. I'm going to give you a couple words right here made up of the hiragana that we've already learned, and some of these words are going to be K sounds with tenten marks or S sounds with tenten marks, and this should help you understand a little bit more about tenten marks. So right here we have the hiragana ke, but when we add the tenten marks to it, what does that symbol turn into? Well, ke becomes ge with a G, becomes ge when we add tenten marks to it. The hiragana symbol ko, when we add tenten marks to that, it becomes go, which is how you say the number 5. So now you know how to spell the number 5 in hiragana. You just write ko with the tenten mark, which turns it into go. The hiragana su with tenten marks becomes zu with a Z, because remember, the S sounds become Z sounds when we have tenten marks on them. Here's a couple different words that you can make with these tenten marks on the hiragana that we've already learned. So kaigai, which means overseas or foreign. So we have ka, I, and then ka with tenten marks, which makes it ga, and then another I. So kaigai is overseas or foreign. Next, we have usagi. Usagi is the word for rabbit. So we have u, sa, and ki with tenten marks, which turns that ki into a G sound. So usagi, usagi, not usaki, usagi. Pretty easy to understand, right? If we see an S sound with tenten marks, then it becomes a Z sound. And if we see K sounds with tenten marks, it becomes a G sound. Now, before we move on to shopping phrases and vocabulary, I want to teach you one hiragana symbol that's at the very bottom of the chart, but it's one that's going to be important to make a lot of words. And that is the hiragana symbol for in. The hiragana symbol in. This sound kind of comes from the back of the throat, so it's not in, but it's sang, sang. If you remember the number 3, sang is the number 3. Now looking at this, it kind of looks like a funky looking H or maybe an N that has like the top part too long, so I feel like it's pretty easy to recognize this one as the N sound, but this is how I would draw this symbol. So we're going to start from the top, we come down, we come back up, almost like we're going to do an H, and we put maybe a little tail at the end of that right there. A handwriting version of that would probably look a little bit more like this. So as long as it comes up higher here, you have a little loop and it comes back. This part right here doesn't actually have to come straight up like that. A lot of people will draw it that way, but I think, yeah, kind of just anything like that. Now a simple word to make with the sound is the number 3, which is sang. So we have sa that we learned last lesson and that we just learned now. So sang together is how you say the number 3. Another word that you can make with the n sound is jikan. So we have shi with the tenten marks right there that turns this into ji. Then we have ka and we have jikan, 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 which means time. Now there's many ways to use the word jikan, but one way you could use it is to say that you don't have any time. So if somebody asks you to do something for them and you don't have the time to do it, you could say, 時間ありません. 時間はありません. I don't have any time. 時間ないね? Sorry, I don't have any time for that. My bad. All right, so let's move on to some vocabulary words for shopping. Some of these may or may not include 10-10 marks or the sound in. So shopping vocabulary, we have kore. Kore is a very useful word in Japanese because it means this. If you think about how many times you use the word this in everyday speech, you'll understand why this is an important word to know in Japanese. Ikura. Ikura means how much. So if I wanted to ask how much is this, I would say kore wa ikura desu ka? Kore wa ikura desu ka? Ikura means how much. Now in that phrase, kore wa ikura desu ka, I said the word desu ka. Now what does the word desu ka? Well, if you remember, we said that the word des means is, but I put a ka at the end of it, which is a question mark. So desu ka means is it? So just as a reminder, if we put ka at the end of a sentence, it becomes a question in Japanese. Desu ka is a question and des is a statement. En. En is the Japanese word for yen. So if we're talking about prices with someone and they give us a number and then say en, that means that's how much money it is in Japanese yen. En is how you say yen in Japanese. Now, because I'm going to be talking about shopping in Japan, you need to learn how to count in Japanese higher than 100, because in Japan, 100 yen is equal to right about $1 US. So you can kind of understand why the yen numbers are going to be much larger than they would in US dollars when we're shopping in Japan. For example, something that is $950 in the US would be something close to 95,000 yen. And it's the same amount of money, it's just we count yen kind of like a penny. So you have to know larger numbers when you're shopping in Japan so you can understand what numbers they're saying the prices are. So the way we count in hundreds is the exact same way that we would count like tens in Japanese, right? When we say 40 in Japanese, we don't say the word 40, we say 410. Yonju, which means 40. We do the same thing in hundreds in Japanese, but there's a couple different ways that you would pronounce the word 100 based on the number that's before it. Here's how you count by hundreds to 1,000. 100, hyaku. 200, nihyaku. See, we just put 2 in front of 100. 300, sanbyaku. This turns hyaku into a B sound. Sanbyaku is 300. 400, 400, 500, 500, 600, 600. So we drop the ku sound and we turn the hyaku into a pyaku with a P. So it's not rokuhyaku, but ropyaku. 700, 700, 800, 800. So we drop off the chi sound and we add a P to hyaku. So it's hapyaku, not hachihyaku. 900, 900, and finally 1,000, which is sen. Now counting by thousands in Japanese is the exact same thing as hundreds and tens. We just say a number followed by the word thousand. And luckily there's only 2 different ways you would pronounce thousand based on the number before it. Here's how you count from 1,000 to 10,000 in Japanese. 1,000, sen. 2,000, nisen. So we put the word 2 in front of the word thousand. Nisen is 2,000. 3,000, sanzen. So we change the sen into a zen when we say 3,000. So it's not sansen, it's sanzen. 4,000, yonsen. 5,000, gosen. 6,000, rokusen. 7,000, nanasen. 8,000, hassen. So when we say 8,000, we don't say hachisen, we say hassen. So we drop off the chi and we make the S sound longer. Hassen is 8,000. 9,000, kyusen. And 10,000. Now here's where counting in Japanese gets even more complicated. When we count to 10,000 in Japanese, you would think that it might just be jusen, right? 10 and then 1,000. But actually, there's a specific word for 10,000 in Japanese that we use, which is man. So ichimaen means 10,000 yen. Now 10,000 yen is like the equivalent of $100. So even though 10,000 seems like a big number to a lot of us, it's not really a big number in Japan. Now you might buy something that's worth more than $100 US in Japan. And if you wanted to count more than just 10,000 in Japanese, all you have to do is put a different number in front of the word man to change the 10,000 amount. So here's how we count by 10,000s in Japanese. 10,000, ichiman. 20,000, niman. 30,000, sanman. 40,000, yonman. 50,000, goman. 60,000, rokuman. 70,000, nanaman. 8,000, hachiman. 9,000, 9,000, and 100,000 is 10,000. Now it seems like it would be 100,000 for 100,000, right? Because 100 is the number for 100 and 1000 is the number for 1,000. But 1000 is only 1,000 up to 10,000. After that, the word man, which means 1/10,000, takes over. Now I'm not going to get into really big numbers in Japanese, but we will count with man for 10,000 all the way up to 99 million in Japanese. So man is like the top number that you need to know for shopping, because probably you're not going to spend over 99 million yen, which is the equivalent of like $999,000.